Okay, what if I told you that the data you lean on every single day might be actively misleading you? Seriously, we're going to dive into a framework that tackles this huge disconnect. You know the one, where your analytics dashboard looks absolutely amazing, but your bank account is telling a completely different story. Let's get right into it. All right, let's just kick things off with a number that should absolutely grab your attention. $847 billion. That's right. That's how much money in marketing is just, well, wasted every single year. And why? Because businesses are relying on the wrong data. We're not talking about a small leak here. This is a massive global flood of wasted cash. So, this forces us to ask a really important question. It's not about whether you have analytics. I mean, everyone does. The real question is, are they telling you the truth? Is your data a trusted guide that's pointing you to success, or is it secretly leading you completely off a cliff? And this gets to the very heart of what some are calling the $847 billion delusion. You know, it's that huge gap between our shiny dashboards and what's actually happening in reality. It's this belief that the numbers we see on the screen perfectly mirror the money we're putting in the bank. But for most businesses, well, that's just not the case. And just look at the scale of this problem. It is staggering. 73% of businesses are tracking the wrong things, the wrong conversion metrics. Just let that sink in for a second. That means nearly 3 out of every 4 companies out there are making huge, critical decisions based on totally flawed data. And this really gets to the core of the issue. We've all been told to obsess over things like traffic, clicks, page views, right? But the crazy thing is, these metrics have less than a 23% correlation with what actually convinces someone to pull out their wallet and buy. There's this massive disconnect between what we're told to measure and what actually moves the needle. Which of course brings us to the infamous Vanity Metrics trap. You know exactly what these are. They're the numbers that look super impressive in a PowerPoint presentation. They make everyone in the meeting feel good, but they don't actually contribute a single dime to the bottom line. They are, quite literally, all sizzle and no steak. Here's a perfect example. Okay, so picture this. You're celebrating a 200% jump in social engagement. Everybody's high-fiving. That sounds amazing, right? Of course it does. But what if, behind the scenes, the number of actual qualified leads, you know, the people who might actually buy something, dropped by 15%? Boom, that's the vanity trap in action. Or what about this one? Your analytics are screaming that visitors are spending over 4 minutes on your site. Fantastic. But the harsh reality? 89% of them are ditching their shopping carts right at the finish line. That time on site metric completely masked a huge, business-killing problem at the most critical moment. And if that's not enough, then you've got the attribution nightmare. See, most of our analytics tools, they have this really bad habit of only giving credit to the very last thing someone clicked before they bought something. The problem with that, they completely miss up to 78% of the actual journey the customer took to get there. It's like we're optimizing for the last 2 feet of a marathon while completely ignoring the first 26 miles. So, okay, if all the old maps are broken, how in the world do we find our way? Well, this is where something called the conversion compass comes in. It's a whole new framework that's designed to help us move beyond all those meaningless clicks and start mapping what our customers are actually doing and thinking. So here's the compass framework, just at a high level. And I want you to notice the flow here. It starts with capturing real user intent, not just clicks. Then it optimizes for emotion. And finally, it aligns every single action directly with revenue. It really is a complete shift in thinking. So let's break down a few of the most important parts. All right, so let's take a look at a couple key pieces of this framework to see how it really works in the real world. This is all about making that huge leap from just counting clicks to actually understanding the psychology behind why people click in the first place. First up, we've got C for capture intent. And this means we stop counting clicks and we start asking much smarter questions. Like, how far down did someone actually scroll on your pricing page? Did their search terms on your site get more specific over time? You see, these are the real behaviors that signal someone is serious, and they predict a purchase way better than a simple page view ever could. Okay, next is O for optimize for emotion, and this part is absolutely fascinating. Research shows that a whopping 95% of our buying decisions are made subconsciously. They're driven by emotion. Just think about that for a second. Almost all of our analytics are laser-focused on that tiny logical 5%, and we're completely ignoring the 95% where the real decision actually gets made. And this is where it all comes together.
A for align with revenue. So instead of those useless vanity metrics, we start using something called revenue predictive indicators, or RPIs. So a metric like a qualified intent score, for example, has an 89% correlation with actual revenue. This isn't about crossing your fingers and hoping for results anymore. It's about predicting them. It is the difference between guessing and knowing.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. This all sounds great in theory, but does it actually work in the real world? Well, let's take a look at a case study that shows just how transformative this approach can be.
So meet a company called TechStart Solutions. Now, they had a problem that's probably going to sound pretty familiar. They had tons and tons of website traffic, but their conversion rate was a tiny 0.8%. Their dashboards looked pretty good, but their revenue was just flat.
So after they put the Compass framework into practice, their conversion rate, well, it didn't just improve, it exploded. We're talking a 347% increase. All of a sudden, they were turning all those casual browsers into actual paying customers.
And what happens when you stop wasting your marketing budget on the wrong people? While their cost to get a new customer was cut by more than half, a 52% reduction. That's huge. But here it is. Here's the real bottom line. The amount of money they made from every single person who visited their site went up by 289%. And that is the direct result of shifting away from feel-good metrics to metrics that actually predict money in the bank. So what does this all boil down to? It's really a fundamental need to completely rethink our relationship with analytics. We have to stop using them like a rearview mirror that only tells us where we've been and start turning them into a predictive engine, a GPS that guides us to where we want to go. You know, if there is one single idea to take away from all of this, it's captured perfectly in this quote. We have all gotten really, really good at measuring the easy stuff. The real challenge, the one that matters, is to start measuring the things that actually count. The intent, the emotion, the trust, the things that truly drive growth. And so that leaves us with one final crucial question for you. The next time you pull up your dashboard, don't just glance at the numbers. Stop and ask yourself, what is my data really telling me? Because the answer to that question, well, it might just change everything.